All good.
Okay. It looks like we are now live. So I'd like to say good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting on November 10th of Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's so much more difficult on Zoom than it is live. I would also like to acknowledge the land that we are on. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish, Snohomish, and Tulalip peoples as we begin to heal. Everett Public Schools is committed to improving the relationship and identifying Indigenous people while exploring our true selves. We express our deepest respect and gratitude to the ancestors of this land. We strive to create equitable outcomes and build a culture of inclusive belonging for all students, teachers, staff, and community. Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Mason,
Present.
Vice President Lassane,
Present.
Director Berg,
Present.
Director Mitchell,
Present.
Director Nichols,
Present.
Student Representative Hussein,
Present.
Student Representative Pilch-Basson.
Present.
Thank you, Jamie. We will now go ahead and move to the adoption of the agenda, our first order of business tonight. Dr. Salzman, please introduce tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and to the public, good evening. Tonight's agenda contains the following: a segment for recognitions, the superintendent's report, segment for board comments, a segment for public comments, segment for routine business, segment for strategic progress monitoring, and upcoming agenda items. Since publishing the agenda, no changes have been made. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second. Second.
It has been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will go ahead and move to the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The agenda is adopted. That takes us to recognitions, and I'm excited tonight to have a couple guests with us to recognize our two National Merit Scholars semifinalists in the district. This is just such a huge honor, and I'm so appreciative that you folks are able to be here with us tonight on Zoom. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Principal Overly to kick things off. I saw her earlier. Is she on mute?
Good evening. I'm here. Can you guys see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Amanda Overly, principal of the Everett High School and home of the Seagulls. It is my pleasure to introduce an outstanding young man named Reed Fowler. Reed is a senior at Everett High and a National Merit Scholarship semifinalist. I could say lots of things about Reed. I thought it would be more fun if we let his peers and his teachers speak for him. Reed is an anchor of trust, connection, acceptance, and joy in our school community. He is the kind of person that you want to be around. He's exceptionally bright, hardworking, and mature. I think he told me there's a gap between this picture and this picture because he said he went through an interesting phase. Those are his words, so I wanted to point that out. Reed always tries to spread goodness, fun, and joy. He is selfless. He works to uplift others. Our lives are brighter and more beautiful because of our time spent with Reed. And it's my pleasure to let Reed have a few words.
I would just like to say it's really an honor to be here. So thank you so much. And I'd like to thank any teacher I've ever had, pretty much, or anyone who's ever talked to me at school, pretty much, for helping me get to where I am now. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet you and glad you could join us tonight. Okay, and then Mr. Principal Takayoshi, please.
Good evening. Again, it is my pleasure to be representing the Bruins of Cascade, and it is my pleasure to be introducing Ethan Kuntz as our National Merit Scholar semifinalist. Ethan has stood out during his time at Cascade as a student with a great deal of admirable qualities. He's shown himself to be a successful, confident, and accomplished young man. He's distinguished himself through academic achievement and intellectual ability, lots of activities here at Cascade and within his community. Activities and accomplishments include varsity lettering in tennis his junior year, becoming president of Cascade's math team, helping to take our Envirothon team to state, being part of our robotics team, attending the Summer Institute of Mathematics at the University of Washington, doing mathematics research with a professor during his running start work, and taking a significant list of AP and honors coursework and achieving top scores on exams, as well as receiving the AP Scholar with Distinction Award for that work. Ethan's teachers say the following about him: he's a standout among standouts. Rarely have I had a student with such natural inquisitiveness and desire to learn complex issues. Because of his hard work combined with talent, Ethan was able to apply solutions to real world problems. Never have I had a student with a desire to learn everything the world has to offer. When I asked one teacher to cite any noteworthy accomplishments in class, the teacher said, "Does having self-taught himself various programming languages count?" Another teacher cited him as taking their course, but then while taking it, researching the next course and then taking the AP exam for that next course and getting the top score. So again, finally, one teacher shared that they felt that Ethan was certainly inquisitive and intelligent, but was also kind in the way he shared his knowledge, never making those around him feel inadequate. So I think it's really clear that Ethan Kuntz is a remarkable and a talented young man with an extremely bright future ahead of him. And it is my pleasure to introduce him tonight.
Thank you all for having me. I mean, that's pretty flattering, to be honest. I didn't expect that much praise. If there's anything that you guys get out of this, Brian Cherniak, he's an awesome teacher. You should give him a raise. And again, thank you for having me.
Reed and Ethan, thank you so much for joining us. It is no surprise to hear about your qualities and academic achievements and accolades from teachers and friends, given your accomplishment here as a National Merit Scholar semifinalist. On behalf of the school board, I'd like to congratulate you. You will be receiving a certificate, probably one of many that you already have and one of many to come. On behalf of the board. And again, thank you. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. These school board meetings are outstanding. You could learn so much, but if you have homework, you're also welcome to go. So thank you again for joining us. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Salzman.
Okay, good evening again. Again to Reed and Ethan, amazing work, and you make us all proud. Thank you so much. First, I want to begin this evening to remind our community as we get into the holiday season, please continue doing the right thing out there. We want to get these numbers down. It takes all of us. It takes every one of us in our community. So just be real safe out there as we enter the busy holiday season. And also on that note, tomorrow is Veterans Day, and I'm very proud of our veterans. I want to thank our veterans. We really do appreciate you, and just honor our veterans tomorrow. I would like to take time to congratulate the school board for their honor of distinction. Next week at the WASDA convention, they'll be honored for a board of distinction. They do amazing work for kids, and they should be honored, and our community should know that you have a great board that helps make everything go quite smoothly for our youngsters out there, and we appreciate it. And to April Berg, our board of director for winning state representative, we congratulate you this evening. I want to take time. I was at a meeting last week with other superintendents across the country, and something hit me when they said, do you remember that you were the first district to go through this COVID? First district in the country, and you forget. So I want to take time right now to thank our teachers for the amazing work that they have done for months and months and months. To our students, this is not what we expected, but you have stepped up and showed a great deal of hard work and determination during this time. To our principals and staff and cabinet, to help shape this work every day. This doesn't happen overnight. This happens with great planning and great detail. So I cannot thank you enough for not only coming to work with your A game all the time, but staying engaged and really trying to keep your spirits up during a time that is unprecedented. And I'd like to call out a lady named Kelly Clevenger, who many of you may not know. She joined us in early July and has worked tirelessly to try to form some form of scheduling for our youngsters as we embark on some form of reentry soon, as we continue to monitor the numbers. And Kelly's one of our unsung heroes in the special ed department, with many other team members that you might hear about this evening, but to thank her. So it takes everybody to do this. And I want our community to know that we could not have done this without you. In the good and the bad of these times, we have all stuck together for one purpose in mind, to try our best for kids. And if we try our best for kids every day, that's all we could ask for. And I appreciate it. And I cherish it as well every day for my two youngsters at home as well. And then finally, you're going to hear a performance now from the Gateway Symphonic Band. And I watched it the other day, and I cannot thank them enough for what a great performance. And I would like to share this with our board and our community tonight. As you watch it, my words to you during the holiday season have been the words since day one. Be safe and be well.
Thank you, veterans, for all that you've done for us. This is a special day for you.
Thank you so much, all veterans. We appreciate you.
Thank you, veterans, for all that you've done for our country. Thank you so much.
Thank you, veterans, for serving our country. Thank you.
Thank you, veterans.
Thank you, veterans, for serving our country.
Hi, Guardians. This is my dad, Jim Campbell, who was in the United States Navy in the late 1950s. And I just want to say that without him and all of the veterans like him, we would not have the same freedoms and the same country that we have today. So thank you, veterans. Thank you, every single veteran, for protecting what we have.
Any further words, Dr. Salzman?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to us tonight. That was truly remarkable. Just what an awesome way to honor our veterans and do a remote online assembly. That was beautiful. Thank you. So now we will go ahead and turn to board comments, and I'd like to invite any directors or student representatives to share anything they want to share. Director Mitchell.
Yes, thank you. First, I would like to congratulate Reed and Ethan. I'm sure they're not here, but just wanted to share my congratulations. And then second, just in that veterans message, this is my niece, Michaela, my nephew, Mason. Mason was in the Army and now is in college. My niece is still in the Air Force, and she is working on the COVID work, so trying to stay safe, and has been accepted to nursing school. She'll enter next fall, so we're so proud of her. I am also the daughter of 2 Navy veterans, and I want to thank also Pam and Andrew for their work to serve this country. Last week, I had the pleasure of serving meals at Mill Creek Elementary School, which was really a pleasure. And we had our communication and family engagement meeting last week, where I said, I'm very thankful for the emails that have gone out, because as we're reminding parents and families that meals will not be distributed tomorrow because of the holiday, a lot of them said, oh, we've already got the email. So great job to communications. I am very thankful for the consent agenda, the donations from the Census Bureau, the government to government donation that appears to have happened, and the amount of PPE that they gave us is, I think, very, very beneficial. I was on a WASDA legislative rep call today, where we talked about how to develop relationships with our legislators, as well as our local city and county people that can help us support the schools. We talked about the power of story, and especially the student's voice in story, and that and really how to engage empathy for our legislators to understand the impacts to our students right now. My small group, we talked about the social emotional impacts, not only on our students, but also on the staff. And maybe there's a way we could share those stories. They did mention that the Senate has already just released their Zoom plan for this next session for testimony remotely. And but WASDA, if we have the ability to create any kind of videos for testimony, they would help us share with legislators. So if, again, for that student voice, a teacher voice, staff voice, if there is a way with our production ability to create some small vignette videos just to really share what our needs are, or maybe even our thanks as they have provided support. Just a word of suggestion. And then on the next legislative meeting, it's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. They want it to be a session of gratitude, and asked us if we have any staff from the district or student from the district that we would like to recognize for their work during this time. that I can extend the invitation to that meeting. So Ian, if you want to let me know if I can recognize, if there's somebody that should be recognized for their work, or if it is all of the staff and students, I would like to share my gratitude at that next WASDA legislative meeting. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Berg.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for your well wishes this last week. So that was really meaningful. Had a great IR with Sequoia. Love. I love all of our schools, but it was great. I think it was really special for me to be on that IR with Sequoia because that was our last IR the previous year. And they did a really good job of showing us kind of what they, how they implemented the takeaways from the last IR. And it was great. And it was, you know, they've identified spots where they need to work on, but it was great to kind of see that progress. And that's what I love about all of our IRs. But I think for the students there, it's really impactful. And it just shows you how meaningful the work we're doing is. Spent a little bit of time this week kind of talking about reimagining kind of education and reimagining how to engage some of the families that we might have lost a little better. So that was awesome. And of course, just a huge thank you this day before Veterans Day to the two veterans that are on our board, Pam and Andrew. I love serving with you both for a variety of reasons, but I think of how much you've already served our country. So it just, it's really meaningful that you want to continue to serve at the local level. And I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the veteran in my family, my baby brother, Rob, who is a Air Force, active Air Force and a 20-year veteran police officer for the Washington, D.C. Metro Force. So he's serving and doing things that I can only imagine, but some kind of way we came from the same family. So that's just awesome. But thank you guys, and thanks to all the families out there.
Thank you. Other directors or student representatives? Student Representative Hussein.
Good evening to everyone. I actually had to write down a list because Everett High School has been hitting the ground running, truly. For Halloween, this past week or the week before that, we had a trunk or treat event at Everett High School. And I'm not sure if you guys were able to go, but we had hundreds of cars. We actually ran out of candy. We had to like ration it out. We had hundreds of cars pass through. Of course, everything was socially distanced. And we had to use PVC pipes to actually distribute the candy as well. Recess does not go through PVC pipes. So we had to unclog those all the time. But it felt normal. And the smile on kids' faces, kids and students, because it was a community-wide event, was honestly amazing. We also had midnight reading on the Beak News where we read Halloween scary stories, and people didn't really pay attention to the scary stories, but instead they commented, and people were just replying to comments, and they would just talk in the comments, which was obviously amazing because it gave them a place to connect and a place to make friends and call each other out and things like that. So that was amazing. We also had a pumpkin carving contest and a baking contest as well. And the winners are on the Beak News if you guys wanted to follow that. For any other events, the weather is getting colder, of course, and holidays are coming up. So follow the Beak News for more events and anything of that sort. Thank you.
You have been busy. My goodness. That sounds awesome. Great things happening. Director Lassane.
Yes, I would like to say that I had an opportunity this past week to visit North Middle School again and see what changes have occurred since they've completed their construction phase. And I am just truly excited for the families and for the students that attend North Middle School. It's a beautiful school. It's gorgeous. It offers so much, and I can't wait until the kids have a chance to get back to the classroom and to experience that once more. I also had the opportunity to attend Cascade High School IR and Woodside IR. And I must say, over the years, having attended the previous one, you can see the growth that the schools are taking with the outcomes of the IR. And I just hope, you know, during this time of digital learning that we will continue to grow even faster, because we are learning so much with how to do things online. And I'm just so impressed by the teachers' websites and the things that they have done and the resources that they provide on their websites for our students. It's just amazing. They also provide parent resources there on how to access things online and so they can help their students. And I'm just really impressed by that. We've learned so much in this digital age, and I'm just looking forward for our students to get back to school. During these past 2 weeks, I've also had the opportunity to attend the parent and community engagement study session that we had. And I can't say enough about the website. You know, I mean, with the teachers' websites and our current website restructuring, it's just impressive. So one of the things that I think we truly took away in this last year was how to do things so much better digitally. And I can only see that growing leaps and bounds in the future. I had also the opportunity to attend the special education PTSA, and I want to say congratulations to Kelly Clevenger and her staff. I mean, from Lauren Whedon, Zach Crane, and Mindy Arnold attending those meetings too. You have an impressive staff. They just know exactly what to say and when to say it, and how to reach out to parents who are, you know, struggling to make sure their kids have the resources, but also to be safe and to also be concerned with the changes that are taking place in our community with COVID. One of the big things that came out of there, and I'm thankful that Dr. Salzman, that we took the extra step of delaying entry. A lot of the parents were very, very concerned with, as the rates within the county are going up, yet we were starting on the 16th, perhaps we should hold off. And I know that our concerns are for those students that, you know, are not able to do online learning very well. Those students who may be blind or truly handicapped such that they just cannot connect remotely is very important. I am glad we took the steps to hold off for the next couple of weeks because of the rates that are going up within the county. That was their concern, and I'm glad we looked into that. But I do want to thank Kelly's staff. She's doing an excellent work of informing our parents out there. And in the future, I can see that just growing by leaps and bounds as well. Again, I also want to thank Ethan and Reed for the work that they've been doing. National Merit Scholar semifinalists, fantastic. And I'm impressed. I am truly impressed. Cascade and Everett High School are truly honored and should be truly honored to have wonderful students like you two. Also, I want to say congratulations to Jackson High School Gigi Tonk. It was in the paper the other day, and I just said, whoa, this is fantastic. She will be a delegate to the Congress of Future Medical Leaders. It's an honors-only program for high school students who want to become physicians or go into medical research fields, and she will be one of the delegates. So congratulations to high school, Jackson High School Gigi Tong for that honor. Thank you. And again, I also want to thank our veterans. Andrew, thank you for your service, and other veterans within the district, thank you for your service. I understand Tony is here. Is he? Anthony Anderson, congratulations and thank you for your service, and all the other veterans that I may have missed. It's an honor to serve with you and an honor to have known you during this time. And so thank you so much. I also want to thank my husband as a veteran, as well as my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law. So I do want to thank each one of them for their service. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And Student Representative Pilch-Bisson.
Hi, yeah. So I have a couple things like Amina. I should have written down a list probably too, but I don't have one. So first of all, Jackson also had one of those drive-through trick-or-treat events. I wasn't able to be there, but I have heard fantastic things from my fellow students at Jackson. So so you heard about that from Amina, but yeah, we had that down here in Mill Creek too. So lots of good things going around the district. And then another thing I want to talk about is at Jackson, I will be starting a book club, which is a smaller thing, but I'm hoping to structure it in a way that is more of like a social thing. Like obviously it's reading, so that's educational, but really what I want it to be is a space where students can connect in a way and interact in a way that's structured enough for it to feel like genuine connection, but then also like not formal and not a lot of pressure. So that's the goal with that, and that just got approved by Jackson's ASB this morning. And then the third thing is that at Jackson, we're also going to be, or around the district, sorry, it's being organized by our former principal, so I keep wanting to say Jackson, but yeah, so Mr. Peters and I have been working on developing a sort of task force for social emotional learning, so following up on what we discussed at a board meeting a few weeks ago. That's going to be held with a couple students, I believe, on the 19th. I might be getting that date wrong, but that's going to be a meeting with different students from all around the district to talk about, from a student's perspective, what we can be doing about social emotional learning, because I think that's probably one of the biggest aspects of what we want to try and fill some gaps on right now with students. And then just another reminder, as Dr. Saltzman and I had talked about, there's going to be a fun pep assembly for Jackson this winter with Mr. Bala. Some fun surprises there that ASB are planning with him. So thank you to Dr. Saltzman for coming up with that idea for some spirit down at Jackson. But yeah, and then like everyone else has said, I want to extend my thank you to our veterans. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you very much. I love the idea of the book group. I think I'll be curious to hear how that progresses, and maybe an opportunity for other schools to do something similar. Director Nichols, do you have any comments for tonight?
Just briefly so we can get on with the meeting. But congratulations again to our National Merit Scholars finalists. Super excited about that. And Pam, Captain Lassane, happy Veterans Day. Hope you take some time to rest and enjoy your family.
Thank you. And I too will just be brief. I did have the opportunity to attend 2 IRs at Everett High School and this morning at View Ridge Elementary. Those are 2 of the schools that my children attended. So it's always great to be back in the fold. I actually love going back to the school, but we'll do that next year. But just 2 phenomenal. I think the value of the IR process has been more than described here with the directors, just to learn the ins and outs and see the work that teachers and staff are doing to support our students. And then I just want to say very much a happy Veterans Day, and especially to the 2 that I currently serve with. So thank you very much for your service. With that, we will go ahead and move on to public comments. And Jamie, are there any public comments for this evening?
There are no public comments received for this evening.
Okay, thank you. So that takes us to the consent agenda. And Dr. Saltzman, can you please provide an overview?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items such as meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus lists, gifts, grants, and recurring contracts. Sometimes it includes items such that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. These items are usually reviewed by the board in the Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting. This gives directors time to ask staff questions or consider discussion about the policy implications of those items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office received no questions. The consent agenda is presented and published for your board approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Would any director like to remove an item from this consent agenda and place it in new business of the agenda? Hearing no requests, we'll go ahead and move to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. The consent agenda is approved, which takes us to section 11.0, strategic progress monitoring. And tonight we have two items to review. First one, 11.01, is our special services program review. And I believe Kelly Clevenger is going to get things started for us. Kelly, you're on.
I'm so sorry. Darlene is helping me here a little bit with.
Okay, are you ready or?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm ready. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I am ready to go. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this special services program update. I'd like to share with you tonight, and I would like to have us just think for a second that every number and every piece of data that I'm going to be talking about tonight, there's a face behind those, a beautiful face behind them. And I just want to remember that, for us to remember that. So the objectives tonight are that you are going to learn about our key values and beliefs. We're going to talk a lot about students, actually. We're going to talk about our staff composition and future developments that we're working towards. And then, of course, most people want to know about our update on reentry. So I just wanted you to take a second and look at these four key values and beliefs. What we believe in our district is that special education is a service, not a place. We always want to presume competence. Children are pretty amazing and they can do an awful lot if we give them the chance and have high expectations. I also want you to remember that students who receive special services are general education students first. And this is a quote that has really spoken to me as I've moved through my career. It was written by a doctor of social work. A child is only as disabled as the environment and beliefs of the people around them. Those key values and beliefs led us to our theory of action. If students with IEPs have increased meaningful physical and intellectual access to the general education setting and curriculum, then we believe that their sense of belonging and academic outcomes should improve, thereby contributing to progress on our state indicators. The state grades us, if you will, each district on various indicators. And tonight we're going to be talking about on-time graduation rate, which is indicator 1, indicator 3C, which is proficiency of students with disabilities on statewide assessments, and then indicator 6A, which is the number of preschoolers with disabilities being served in non-segregated early childhood classrooms. So I want you to take a look at these faces and look at all they can do, and there's staff working with them and parents working with them. These are the students that we're talking about tonight. The next slide talks about our enrollment in our programs. Most of our students, about almost 50% of our students are served through resource room staff in schools. And each one of our schools has a resource room, staff to serve students. Other services that are provided in various programs, for like example, our life skills program. That program is in 11 of our schools across the district. And we have our Achieve program, which works with students who struggle with self-regulation. Extended Resource are students who need a little bit of extra time and support to complete their academics and so on. We also have 3 programs in our district for children who are students. They're actually not children, they're men and women who are 18 to 21-year-olds, and that's Goal and Strive. There are 13 disability categories that are outlined in the Individuals with Disability Education Act. That's called IDEA. I'm sure you've heard that abbreviation. Everett's data is very similar to other districts in the area where children, the biggest group of children are diagnosed with a specific learning disability in reading and writing. And most of these students are served through resource room staff. The next highest are communication disorders, which is very common for 3-year-olds to come in when parents are concerned about their speech delays. And so we have about 20% of our students are diagnosed with communication disorders. And then we also have 18% of our students that are served under the category of health impairment. And for example, those students who might be diagnosed with ADHD or ADD, students with seizure disorders or any other kind of medical issue that they're struggling with that really affects their education. We have some of our categories are fairly low in terms of how many students that we serve in them. So for example, our orthopedic impairments, there's only 3 students in our district that have that disability category, 8 that have deafness, 10 that have visual impairment, and 14 that have traumatic brain injury. I wanted to also show you a graph of how the ethnicity of children that are served by special services compared to the district enrollment. And as you can see, our enrollment in special services is commensurate with the district's ethnic enrollment. We're very proportionate in our service areas. For example, we have 43% of the district's population is Black, and 4.3% and 4.6% of those students with disabilities are Black. So this is actually very good news for our district to be commensurate. So here are our enrollment trends, as you can see, from 2017 to 2020. And I wanted you to make sure that I pointed out to you this number of 0 right here, which are our birth to 3 students. Last year, the legislature voted to move the birth to 3 students in our community who are disabled to the Department of Early Learning. And it used to be that we were in charge of those birth to 3 students, and we would make contracts out to organizations like Kindring or Snohomish County or Child Strive to serve those students. It's really common for school districts to serve, to contract out their 0 to 3 work. And so that we would get the money and then we would pass it through to the agencies. Well, last year, the legislature decided to just pass that money on to Department of Early Learning. So that's why our population of birth to 3 has gone down. And the other area to note of increased enrollment is in our preschool programs. And that is very, very common around our region. And a lot of districts, I've talked to a lot of other directors, and we really feel like part of it is the quality and the quantity of services that Children's Hospital in Seattle provides, that many people will move here or will move here and enroll their students in special programs along the I-5 corridor. And so we've seen a big increase in our preschool students. The next slide shows a little bit about our program models, and every school district has a commitment and a mandate from the state to provide what we call a continuum of services. So that is to meet all the students, to meet the needs of all of our students. So we have early learning program, developmental preschool, developmental kindergarten. We have programs that are kindergarten through 12th grade. We have resource room support, extended resource, life skills. And then we also have the Achieve program. Then we also have itinerant, which means these are students that usually only have one service area. So we would have a teacher that would travel to their, like our vision teacher goes to all sorts of schools in our district and serves the children or students in that particular school. And then we have related service like speech and motor, and then our 18 to 21-year-old program for students who have not met graduation requirements and whose IEP stresses that they will actually have an extended or continued graduation rate, so we can serve them through their 21st year. The next two slides I'm going to show you about are some academic outcomes, and the first, oh, wrong one, sorry. Okay, that's not exactly what I was doing first. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the state performance indicator. One of them is called least restrictive environment, and I'm not sure if you know what that term means, but it's used a lot in special education. This describes how much time a student spends being educated alongside their typically developing peers. The goal would be to have the highest number of students accessing 100% to 80% of their time in the general education classroom. And then, this is really good news for Everett, because the majority of our students, most of our students do spend, about 43% of our students spend 80 to 100% of time in general education. And how that can look is that the resource teacher or may go into the general ed classroom and serve the student in there. They may be getting some of their specially designed instruction from the general education teacher. So it's good news. This graph looks great for us. And we have about 17 students that we serve in what we call private or agency schools. And these are students whose IEP team has decided that Everett has not able to, that the child needs something a lot more intensive than what we can offer. So we contract out to these private agencies that are considered non-public agencies with OSPI. And we support their education and monitor their IEP, but they're just getting this really specialized help from another agency. So for example, one of them is a Listen and Talk, which is a program in Seattle that helps children who are hard of hearing and deaf. And we will sometimes contract with them to help students who really need that intensive work. And then we don't have any good news is we don't have any children in residential placement, which a lot of school districts do, but we've been able to serve our students regionally, which is great. Okay, the next two slides I'm going to show you are about academic outcomes. And the first slide is how students come into our district. So in kindergarten, the students, the very first week of school, or maybe the week before, get assessed by the kindergarten teachers using the WA Kids assessment. You can see that, and what that shows is the percent of students entering kindergarten ready in all areas of learning and development. And all of the areas of learning and development are right down here on this part of the slide. Cognitive, language, literacy, math, physical development, and social emotional development. So about 50% of our students in the Everett School District come in ready in all 6 of these areas. So that's about 50%. Students with disabilities come in about a quarter, right? About half of the students without disabilities. So that's how they're entering kindergarten. And they looks to me from interpreting this graph that about the highest level of need is in our literacy, physical abilities, and cognitive abilities. And then this next graph down here, and I'll just go over the very first one here, or I'll go over the second one, the language. So about 70.1% or 7.1% of the kindergartners coming in who have disabilities show skills about 0 to 2-year-olds. 9.5% show that they're about the level of a 2-year-old in their language ability, 23% 3-year-olds, 34 4-year-olds, and then about a quarter of them come in with strong language skills. The next slide shows about our academic outcomes with our SBA testing. So if you look at our English language arts, our students with disabilities are proficient, 31.4% of them are proficient compared to the students without disabilities are at 78%, and so on in math and science. And I want to let you know really that this is our most concerning piece of data, that all of our work that we do right now is really focused on these outcomes and really focused on the achievement of these students. Because for the most part, about 80% of our students with special needs have average or above average cognitive ability. And so we really, this is my mandate, I feel like, to increase the proficiency in these grade level standards. However, I will tell you that there's some really good news here too. So when you look at the student growth percentiles, our students with disabilities are about on par with our students without disabilities in terms of their yearly growth, which I think is extremely exciting to see. And it really gives us an opportunity to think about our teachers, our special educators, our general educators who are really helping those students keep growing at the same rate as our typically developing students. On-time graduation. This is also really good news for us, even though it looks like the students with disabilities graduate a little bit less on time than the students without disabilities. But it is exciting because if we add up the 84.2% and then the continued graduation rate, we actually reach a graduation rate of 96%, which is really fabulous for students with disabilities. So I want to just talk to you a little bit about that continued graduation rate. So many students with disabilities, not many, I would say maybe about a quarter of them have the opportunity to go on to what we call our transition program, our 18 to 21-year-old programs. And those are the way that a student moves to those programs is they've not met the graduation requirements, and in their IEP it says that they're going to have an extended graduation date. And so these students can go to school until their 21st year, and in Strive and Goal they do a lot of work on vocational kinds of activities. And it's actually, if you've never had an opportunity to go to one of our programs when we're open, you really should go to a transition program. It's so exciting to see how they grow and to really be able to work with them as adults. And if any of you board members would love to come with me sometime when we're back open, I would love to take you to a transition program because it's really fabulous. Okay, now we talked about students. Now we're going to talk about our staff, who's leading this work. And like Director Hussein said, I do have a fabulous team of Lauren and Zach and Mindy who all support different regions in our district, and they've been really fabulous to work with and really, really open and welcoming to me as I've come in here new. And then I also want to just point out our organizational chart, and we have a great admin that support us. We have the directors. And then I also wanted to just call out for a second our facilitators. We have 7 facilitators, and they're really the backbone of our work. They do a lot of direct work with teachers, and they help them learn curriculum, help them write APs, and they lead a lot of our professional development. Our staff growth patterns. Our growth includes an increase in certified staff because of an increase of an enrollment, and overall static amount of classified staff growth. It's stayed pretty stable. The next slide I want to show you is a little bit about some of our financial information. So we have a percentage of our students whose education costs in excess of $34,000 a year. So for example, if a student is in need of a one-on-one support all day, the cost of their education would exceed $34,000. So the state allows us to submit their IEPs in March for any student that exceeds that cost. The IEPs absolutely have to be completely compliant, and there's 850 items on an IEP for compliance, so we have to work really hard on it. And then in March we submit our amount that we'd like to get reimbursed for, and then the state will go through and then reimburse us for those costs. And it looks like we've had a really nice steady increase. To last year we received $2.5 million. The last little bit of this slideshow is about equitable outcomes, and it's about our future. So like I said at near the beginning of this slideshow, I talked about that our goal focus is really on academic outcomes. So I want to talk to you a little bit about our ideas about creating more equitable outcomes. One is we want to talk about some inclusionary practices, strengthening our program design, and increasing our parent engagement. And I just want to talk to you a minute or so about what inclusion means. So inclusion is a term that's used in education where all students have the opportunity to be educated in an environment with other children who inspire them, where the adults provide the support and scaffolding to make curriculum accessible. All children need to be taught in large, small, and at times individually, not just students with disabilities. We want to increase the number of our students who are receiving specially designed instruction using standards-based general ed curriculum. We also would like for each of our students who, like for example, in our life skills or in a Achieve program, to also have an assignment in their general education classroom so that we can make inclusion opportunities a lot easier to obtain. And then the other part of inclusion that we're really working, that Ann Arnold and I have already started working on, is continuing our planning for inclusion opportunities for developmental preschool students to access early learning general education classrooms. So for example, just working together for our developmental kindergarten preschool and our ECAP program to integrate. Then I just want to take a second we're going to do a little program spotlight. We're going to talk a little bit about our Achieve program, which works with students who have a hard time with self-regulation, whether that's internally or externally. We have about 40% of our Achieve program students are in elementary, 26% in middle, and 34% in high school. And this next box is it's a little hard to understand, so I'm going to explain it a little bit. So about 91% of all of our elementary students in our Achieve program spend only 0 to 39% of their day in general education. And I'm gonna explain a little bit why that is, why we do that. And then the reason that we do that is because some of those students really need a lot of time to learn strategies and coping skills to be able to maintain their behavior in a general ed classroom. And we do this, we spend a lot of time in elementary school really building them up, and then as they move into high school and middle school, we're able to have them spend more time in general education environments, so that they've learned lots of coping skills, and they can be a little bit more independent and on their own. The enrollment by ethnicity in the Achieve program is very commensurate to our school district, except for with white students. We have 63% of our students with disabilities. 63% of the students in our Achieve program are white, and our district enrollment is only 49%. So we're looking really closely at that, about how this is coming about, and we're looking into our data. The last thing about the Achieve program that I wanted to share with you is that about 1/3 of these students come into the Achieve program, and the only area that they qualify for are behavior and social emotional skills. So many of them are very, very good. They've got high math skills, high reading skills, high writing skills. They really are struggling with self-regulation. And there's numerous reasons why that is the case. There's trauma. A lot of it has to do with an experience of trauma in their life. Okay, the last piece of this is parenting engagement, and we are revitalizing our Special Education Advisory Council. So we're asking parents, teachers, paraeducators, community members to be part of our council, and there's on our website, there's a link to being able to apply to be on the Special Education Council. We're also strengthening our in our community with our special education PTSA, and to increase our membership, to continue healthy dialogue, to increase equitable outcomes, and to improve family engagement. We're also working together with the PTSA to develop some co-planned parent workshops, primarily looking at community services, parent listening sessions, IEP 101, because IEPs are very complicated and it can be very overwhelming for families and parents to understand the process. And then we also want to do a co-planned workshop on educational accommodations. The last little bit of this is about our COVID updates. So we've been spending a lot of our time in this fall working on re-entry planning for students who aren't well served in the virtual modality. And we've spent time surveying families on preferences, families and staff on preferences for in-person or remote services. We also then matched the students with the teaching staff for the families that wanted to be remote, and the teachers who either needed to be remote or preferred to be remote. We've also spent a lot of time with our group that works with safety, and we've conducted training for all affected staff on the 23rd of October and the 26th. We conducted several Zoom question and answer sessions with staff and parents, by the way. And we're also designing a process for recovery services. There's a mandate through OSPI that we need to look at the students who have been out of the building and how much regression they've had. And if they've had a tremendous amount of regression, then we have to make up some of those services. I just also wanted to say about this COVID update is that I would like to stress that this is an interdepartmental project with facilities, student services, health services, nutrition, transportation, communication, human resources, the teacher association, and a host of others. And I was thinking about when I put together this slide page, I was thinking that as a new person to the Everett School District, I think I know so many people now because of this planning process. I've had to really get to know a lot of people. So that's been great. One of our directors is really great with infographics. And so one of the things that teachers and others wanted to know about was what would a day in a life of a student coming back to the building look like. And so he went through suggesting some protocols to follow, for example, like loading and unloading buses, those kinds of things, and just so that we could help staff kind of get an idea about what it would look like. And then the next one I know has a lot of print on it, but I wanted to let you know that this is similarly, this slide outlines kind of the behind the scenes things that principals, teachers, pairs might need to do to enable to receive students. So for example, like for lunch and recess, behind the scenes, the principal would be monitoring lunch supervision, custodial staff would continue to check on things. So this was a way to kind of frame it for teachers and staff to kind of know what it was going to look like to come back. I know I went probably on and on a little bit much, but I just wanted to share. I just feel really passionate about this work, and I feel really blessed to be here in Everett. And so I'm just wondering, does anybody have any questions for me?
Directors, go ahead if you have questions, please.
Well, I just have a question, and I guess just welcome Kelly to the district. And I don't know, is everything going on? I don't know if I actually officially said welcome, but I just have a question about IEP and the demographics. And so just because I'm just not aware, like, so is that all, does that take into account all of our IEPs, or is that just the ones that are having direct special services?
Oh no, all of our students who have IEPs get special services.
Get special services of some nature. So when we look at those demographics, that is inclusive of the entire universe of IEPs in terms of how they break out demographically.
Correct.
Awesome. And then I would love to take you up on your offer to visit a transition program. And I'm wondering, as they, with our extended kiddos that are, graduating maybe a year or two later, do we have a graduation service for them? Like, is that something?
Yes, we do.
We do. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so yeah, that would be
and
great.
This is what happens is that they also get the diploma from the high school that they went to. So like, for example, if they went to Cascade High School, they would get a Cascade diploma. If they went to Jackson, they'd get a Jackson diploma.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And then my last thing is just like kudos on those infographics, because
I know.
Oh my word, and I'm super visual. And so having that laid out, and I think as I've been talking to parents in the community about coming back, right? They are walking through verbally, like, well, what about this? And what about this? And it's great to see it all visually. And then even that second one that was a little more wordy, but talking about the behind the scenes, it just makes me feel comforted as a parent, knowing that everything is covered, like you've thought of everything, even things that I'm not seeing. So I just kudos for that. And hopefully we'll, maybe see a little more of that with the different areas that are coming back. So thanks.
Yeah, Zach did those actually. Zach Crane, amazing.
Awesome.
A newfound talent.
Yeah.
Other directors or student representatives, please. Do you have comments or questions?
This is Tracy. I just want to say thank you for this and all of the staff, because I do believe this is really hard during this time for our most vulnerable. And I always like the reminder that they are basic ed students who are getting special services. Kelly, just so you know, my sister had a reading disability, and because of the special services that she received, as an adult, she became a voracious reader. Wow. And you would have never known that she had a reading disability. But it is because of teachers like you and every teacher in our district that has a special and loving hand. So thank you.
I would just like to comment that I want to thank Kelly for the work that you're doing, and your staff, and Zach and Lauren and Mindy, what you're doing for our parents during the PTSA meetings. Just to be able to share with them what the district provides, what the district is doing, and what additional resources they may need. It's just awesome what you're doing, and I really do want to say thank you. Thank you and your staff for what you've been doing.
You're welcome. You too. It's been really great to have you at those meetings too.
Hey, Kelly, it's Andrew. So going back to your academic outcomes slides, looking at the disparity on, the percentage of students who met grade level standards between students with and without disabilities, and then you compare that to our on-time graduation rate. Do you think that if we broke out that grade level standard a little bit more by like schooling, so by elementary school or middle school or high school, you'd see a trend of our students with disabilities catching up to account for that increased graduation rate?
I just want to clarify your question. So
sure.
If we broke it, if we can break the data down any way we want to. So can you just ask that again? Because I'm not.
Sure, yeah, no, it's a little convoluted. So when you look at, let's see, slide 13.
Yeah.
And it has percent of students who met grade level standards. I imagine in this slide, we're lumping in elementary school, high school, and middle school all together in these percentages, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, and that looks like a huge disparity. And so when you look at that and then you scroll down to
expected
our
growth.
Our graduation rates,
right?
And they're nearing, close to each other, which I think is fantastic. So I'm just wondering if these numbers at the grade level are maybe would we see kind of more of a difference if we broke it out by grade level for folks in our disability programs?
We might actually. And when I think about when we look at those SBA for like 3rd, 5th, 8th grade, things like that, the students with disabilities used to be able to take those tests and score a basic, which is a 2, right? And still be considered passing. Well, the state took that ability away for any student except for a student in high school, right? So so students in high school could score basic, and that would be a way for them to graduate. So I think,
it sounds like there's a couple of factors.
There are a couple of factors, and I
Okay.
will look into that a little bit more and try to disaggregate the data a little bit more.
Okay.
But that's a really good question.
Yeah, I just figured there's got to be something there that we're not seeing, because obviously you're doing quite a lot for these students, and there's a lot of passion and effort that goes into this, and I just want to make sure we're not missing any opportunities to support you further.
Thank you.
And I have a follow-up question, sorry, just based on what Director Nichols had mentioned with the graduation. And I think it's a great point, just because in general, I'm always looking at those numbers, wondering how do we close that gap so quickly with all of our student populations. It always seems like we end up getting it closed by hook or by crook. And so I'm hoping it's in like really super awesome ways that we can, support you more on. But I'm wondering, did it help when the state added like those 5 graduation pathways, like those alternative ones?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm wondering, I sat through a workshop like, I don't know, a year or so ago, and they I had a family in there was about special services talking about like the ASVAB, right? And I never even thought about that, but their kiddos had taken the ASVAB, and that was a way that they got over the finish line. And so have we seen that? So could that be part of it too, having those alternative pathways?
Yes, and I can actually give you an example of that. Yesterday I was meeting with a family, an IEP team, and this young woman is needing to learn Braille, and so what her administrator suggested yesterday would be part of her personal pathway, so that she could earn credits for for like
foreign language.
No, it can't be for foreign language. We talked about
okay.
that, but it's for some other personal pathway that she's going to take. So she has to spend quite a bit of time learning Braille, and so we're going to work it into getting her credits for that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome. Okay, that's really great. I think stories like that are so powerful.
Yeah.
And you don't think about it, like, you know, just how and what folks will be accessing those opportunities, but it's great to hear that our kiddos are doing it. So thanks.
Kelly, I was going to just request, can you pull the presentation down so we have an opportunity to see all the little boxes on the screen?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It makes it just a little bit easier in terms of identifying who's interested in speaking. Thanks. I had a question I wanted to ask. When you were on slide 18, you had mentioned when students exceed the $34,000, is that our district average?
No, that's a state, that's the state minimum. That's the state minimum. So if we go any district that goes over $34,000 to educate a child has the opportunity to submit that to safety net to the state.
And then I don't know if this is a you or a Jeff question, but our shortfall, and then we go in for the safety net, we get 2.5 million, and yet this coming year we're projecting a 2.5 million shortfall in special education funding. Is that with or without the safety net?
I think Jeff needs to answer that question.
I might respond to that. I think the 2.5 million might be the SEB shortfall. Our special ed shortfall has been in the $4 to $5 million range, and that does include the special or the safety net application estimate. For this particular year, when we're overstaffed because of lower enrollment and with the highly impacted kids, that number may be more in the $8 million range, and we'll be talking about that shortly at the legislative update. So yes, it does include and anticipate a certain amount of safety net recovery, and that team works long hours to produce it, and we need that in this funding circumstance.
Great, thank you for the clarification. I wanted to give the student representatives an opportunity to ask any questions before we move on, if you're interested. Go ahead, Tara.
Yeah, so I don't have a specific question actually, but I just wanted to extend a thank you. My older brother just graduated this past year, and he's dyslexic. And so he went to a private school in Seattle for a really long time, or not a really long time, a couple years, to try and figure that out. And then he, in 9th grade, he came to Jackson. And so he spent all 4 years of high school at Jackson. And one of the things that was really good for him, as part of his graduation plan, was he ended up doing snow owl for his junior and senior year. Yeah, so because obviously with dyslexia, you know, the typical classroom environment is not ideal for your learning. And so he ended up doing half the day with his IEP classes and the other half of the day at Snow Isle learning, I believe it was Autobody, that was the program he was in. So that was really valuable for him. And so I just wanted to highlight that as another path for some students with disabilities, because that was something that was really, really valuable for him, and definitely helped him graduate. I wouldn't say easier, but in a way that was more meaningful to him and will be more helpful to the career that he chooses. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. But thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. That's those personal accounts always make the work that we do and hear about so much more meaningful. Any further comments? Okay, with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for a very comprehensive presentation. It's amazing how, you know, we get these updates year over year, and I'm always learning something new, and I really appreciate what you brought to this presentation and to your team in particular. So thank you. Okay, we're going to move on with our second strategic progress monitoring. 11.02 is an overview of our comprehensive sexual health education curriculum. And is Dr. Boughton going to introduce, or is Brian Day going to roll right into it?
I am going to introduce while Brian brings up the slide deck.
Okay.
Brian, you can share your screen, Brian.
Give me 1 second. The presentation just disappeared.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do some introductions. And first of all, I want to just say good evening and thank you, President Mason, Board of Directors, for this opportunity for this evening for our team to share. Last spring, the state legislature and Governor Jay Inslee signed Senate Bill 5395, which concerned comprehensive sexual health education in public schools. As a result of this, it became one of the high-profile issues on the ballot in Washington State this November on Referendum 90, which asked voters to approve or reject the requirement for public schools in Washington State to have comprehensive sexual education. The referendum was approved, and it does require school districts to adopt or develop, consistent with state standards, comprehensive, age-appropriate sexual health education for all students. This is a topic that was widely publicized in media because of the referendum, and we wanted tonight to be able to share some information, update both the board and the public on where we stand with our sexual health curriculum. And we're really fortunate in Everett Public Schools that we have existing curriculum in health and social emotional learning. And we wanted to share with the community what our curriculum is and how we plan to meet the requirements. So tonight we have two staffs from the academics office, Brian Day, who is the Career Technical Ed and Health and Fitness Director, and Corey Gudgeon, who is the Medical Pathways Facilitator, who is helping this evening to develop our common understanding of the state laws and learning standards related to sexual health education, and also to review the comprehensive sexual health programs that we have here in Everett. And they're also going to help build our understanding about our plan for district-wide consistency of instruction, as well as communication to our families, and then review the implementation timeline for our sexual health education in Everett Public Schools. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Day, who's going to lead us through the first part of our presentation. Brian?
Thank you, Shelley, and good evening, everyone. Shelley, can you confirm that you are looking at the presentation right now?
We are. Thank you, Brian, for checking.
Thank you very much. So our sexual health education work is centered on two strategic goals. We are ensuring that it is equitable access for all students to the curriculum, and we're ensuring that the instruction is rigorous and truly has an impact on our students. The key performance outcomes reflect the strategic goals I just reviewed, but please note performance outcome 1.3.c. Students receive and apply health and fitness instruction and make informed choices to improve their health and fitness. This KPO includes sexual health education as well. Also note that this outcome is reflected in School Board Policy 2123, which has been in place for a number of years. I will review this policy in the upcoming slides. Prior to starting the content of this presentation, we want to acknowledge that this is an important and critical subject area for our students. The instruction is important for the health of our students now and in the future. We also want to make sure it is known that we take the rights of parents very seriously, especially the right of parents to decide how their students receive this information, and we are ensuring that our practices reflect this. I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but I think it is important to state just right now that we're putting multiple structures in place to ensure that parents have knowledge of the curriculum, they understand the curriculum and are able to review it, and there's multiple means of assessing opt-out information. Likewise, we are working hard to make sure teachers are well supported, they have the professional development they need to be successful, and principals have what they need to lead this important and challenging area. As a school district, there are multiple factors which determine a comprehensive sexual health education program, including laws, standards, and adoption process. The AIDS Omnibus Act is an outcome of the 1988 legislative session. It requires HIV/AIDS prevention education to begin in grade 5. Education of students to behaviors which place a person at risk and methods to avoid such risk. and parents have the opportunity to excuse a student from instruction. The Healthy Youth Act is an outcome of the 2007 legislative session. This law requires health education instruction materials are medically and scientifically accurate and age appropriate, that OSPI and the health department generate a list of curricula aligned to these guidelines, and that parents have the opportunity to review a district's curriculum and request to excuse a student from instruction. It is important to note that the law does not require sexual health education in our schools, but it requires that sexual health education be accurate. Moving to standards. These are the 8 learning standards for health education. These standards cover K through 12. These standards were designed to lay the foundational knowledge for students to be healthy and well throughout life, support the development of healthy and productive members of society, prioritize the need of each student by using inclusive language, and emphasize instructional understanding and application of the whole child approach. The state's education standards call out specific ideas for sexual health education: anatomy, reproduction, and pregnancy, puberty and development, self-identity, prevention, healthy relationships, Washington state laws. On March 27, 2020, the state legislature passed and Governor Inslee signed Senate Bill 5395 concerning comprehensive sexual health education. The bill requires school districts to adopt or develop, consistent with state standards, comprehensive, age-appropriate sexual health education for all students. Like the other laws, parents can request that their child be excused from instruction. Senate Bill 5395 will require districts who are not teaching sexual health education to teach sexual health education. We are already providing instruction in accordance with our own policy, Policy 2123. This policy calls up many of the same areas as 5395. On this slide, we pulled out 3 areas within Senate Bill 5395, which will have impact on our program and are not part of our own policy. Social emotional learning in grades K through 3. This is the only K through 3 piece identified in Senate Bill 5395 for this grade level. It is important to note that we already have curriculum in place that addresses social and emotional learning. Affirmative consent and bystander training by grades 4 through 12. We need to make sure that parts that are already in our curriculum are called out in instructional maps and supplementation happens where needed. Sexual health education must be taught twice in high school. We currently teach it 1 time in high school, 9th grade health, which is a required course. Excuse me. As Shelley noted, on November 3rd, voters were asked to approve Senate Bill 5395. The law was on hold until this vote. It was approved, and we will ensure that its provisions are fully implemented. This is Policy 2123 that I was referring to. Health, family life, AIDS, and sexual education, including information about human anatomy, reproduction, and related topics, shall be included in the instructional program as appropriate to the grade level and course of study. The instructional approach shall be developed after a consultation with parents, guardians, and appropriate community representatives. I'm now going to turn over the curriculum part over to Corey Gudgeon. Corey is a past health teacher who now works alongside me to support health science and health teachers. She's also leading our efforts to implement our patient care program at Everett High School. She supports teachers directly, and she's the reason why I have high confidence that we will continue to meet the learning needs of all of our students.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. With the passing of SB 5395, things to know at this time while we wait for more guidance from OSPI are we currently have curriculum for social emotional learning education for our students. We anticipate further guidance from OSPI concerning scope of instruction, which will allow us to determine if our current curriculum and procedures are sufficient. Even though the law says K3 for social emotional learning, our social emotional learning focus in our district is really on K4. Prior to SB 5395, our 5th grade students were taught 3 lessons in the spring time to comply with the state mandated requirement of HIV STD prevention. SB 5395 adds age-appropriate instruction on affirmative consent and bystander training. OSPI defines affirmative consent to be an approach to giving and receiving consent that includes clear, voluntary, enthusiastic permission to engage in any activity. It's not just the absence of no. In 4th or 5th grade, it might focus on hugs or horseplay, hand-holding, or other touch, as well as virtual contacts such as texts or emails or taking photos. Bystander training is defined by OSPI to teach students how to safely intervene when they see bullying, sexual harassment, or unwanted sexual activity. They are included in this legislation as a way for schools to combat the high rates of unwanted sexual contact experienced by youth in our state. As you can see with this slide, we have an established health program with sexual health education in place. At the elementary level, students receive HIV/AIDS prevention education, as well as growth and maturation education in grade 5 that lasts up to 3 days, with the no curriculum and supplemental videos from Discovery. At the middle school level, students receive 30 days of health education per year, with 8 of those days being comprehensive sexual health education with the Get Real curriculum. At the high school level, our students take family health for a semester in grade 9 and receive comprehensive sexual health education 8 to 10 days of their health class with the Get Real high school curriculum. This has been the layout of our current district health programs. So SB 5395 requires social emotional learning in grades K-3. There's no sexuality content in the SEL curriculum or required by law. And we currently have second step social emotional learning curriculum in place for grades K through 3. And again, our SEL curriculum does not include sex ed. Again, our district SEL curriculum includes 4th grade. For grades 5, the no curriculum is used to teach HIV STD prevention education that is covered in the spring along with growth and maturation. Instruction will be enhanced to include affirmative consent and bystander training per SB 5395. For grades 6 through 8 content, Get Real curriculum is used to teach HIV STD prevention. Affirmative consent and bystander training will be enhanced for grades 6 through 8 per the passing of SB 5395. For our secondary level, we use the Get Real high school curriculum to teach HIV STD prevention in grade 9, and it includes 3 weeks of instruction. Affirmative consent and bystander training must be added to the 2020-2021 school year. Currently, in our high school health class, bystander training and affirmative consent has been part of our current instruction, but we are working hard to enhance it. SB 5395 also adds that starting the school year of 2021-2022, sexual health education will be taught twice in high school. These are the current practices and plans that have been in place to connect and notify middle school and high school families leading up to the current school year. You will hear about our plan to do more, because our district can do more, with our efforts in notifying and connecting with families, as well as provide uniform common sexual health education across our district, including providing common alternative lessons for students who are opted out from Brian here soon. Here is a review of the middle school and high school sexual health materials adoption and timeline, as well as the process followed that took place in 2016. There was an ad hoc committee review. The first reading was on February 26, 2020. The Instructional Materials Committee Chair was notified of 2 requests for reconsideration of materials specific to the middle school Get Real curriculum. The ad hoc committee reviewed the curriculum in order to ensure alignment and fidelity through articulated instructional maps, enhance and ensure communication and involvement with families, including translation of communication, provide teacher support with alternate lessons and guidance on instruction, and determine how materials align with new legislation. And after they reviewed, they determined that our Get Real middle school curriculum is a modified use of the curriculum. And it was really felt by the ad hoc committee that it was a modified use because they felt it was inconsistently being implemented across our district. And really the modified use is not about the implementation of the curriculum, or I'm sorry, the adoption of the curriculum, but really how it's been implemented across our districts. There was a second ad hoc committee review with a second new committee formed on May 14th, 2020. This was the new ad hoc committee comprised of 3 teachers, 4 parents, 1 middle school administrator, 1 regional superintendent, and the chief academic officer and the director of athletics and activities to readdress the curriculum. You might be wondering, why was there a second committee? It was because it was felt that the first committee didn't provide a wide enough community voice, and we needed more opportunities for parents and community to have a voice and be able to be involved in this process. The committee determined that the Get Real curriculum is comprehensive overall and covers new requirements of social emotional as well as the other aspects of SB 5395. Extended findings by this committee were that the Get Real curriculum strongly aligns with Senate Bill 5395 and the Healthy Youth Act. There were gaps in bystander training for grades 6 and 8. It aligns with required physiological concepts, psychological concepts, and sociological concepts. It extensively addressed the development of interpersonal and intrapersonal relationships and communication skills. And it includes the need for trusting and respectful relationships from friends, family and community members, and healthy behavior from self and others. I am now going to turn it back over to Brian, who will talk about our action plan moving forward.
Thank you, Courtney. Given the ad hoc committee's recommendations, results of the board study last year, as well as school feedback, an action plan was designed in order to ensure that instructional consistency and communication was there. I'm going to provide you an overview in the upcoming slides, and I'm happy to expand on this summary and provide additional information on the other efforts that we are putting in place. For instructional consistency, the following are several of the elements we are working on to ensure consistency in instruction throughout the district. So we're making sure that there's updated K through 12 instructional maps that includes strategies specific to Senate Bill 5395. We're developing companion resources for lessons that include differentiation for students who need the extra support. We're maintaining a Canvas portal site that provides teacher access to materials and facilitates collaboration among teachers. We're providing initial use professional development and ongoing professional development that provides training for teachers that are on all levels. And we're enhancing opt-out alternative lessons and procedures and making sure that there's a consistency across the board. For enhanced communication, the communication provides the following. We're establishing baseline parent-guardian communication strategies for each level and for each building. We're providing school support for written and in-person communications prior to lesson. We're providing multiple translations for critical communications. We're supporting buildings with parent information meetings, and we're increasing accessibility to curriculum review opportunities. I'll also add that there is a website which we continue to update, and it will be offered in multiple languages. And parents will be able to review the curriculum digitally in addition to visiting schools as they've always had. All these actions are in progress, and we will be implementing by the time instruction begins. Teachers and principals will be informed and trained. For next steps, we're continuing implementation of instructional and communication action plans. We'll be doing that throughout the year. We're determining instructional professional development needs and opportunities. Remember, Corey has a work group meeting the second week of December for elementary and middle school teachers. And she's been working frequently with high school health teachers since spring. And I honestly can't speak high enough about Corey and the assistance that she gives the teachers. And I'm working with principals just prior to the meeting with the elementary and middle school teachers to make sure they are informed. We're determining remote learning options and strategies. Honestly, we need to be prepared for this. Corey attended professional development with OSPI, I believe, several weeks ago. And as you can imagine, in this area, it's important that we learn how to establish safe environments and make sure that we're supporting each student in this subject area. We're working closely with teachers, principals, and staff to ensure all students are supported and further finding strategies to enhance communication with parents and all stakeholders. We're looking for any types of innovations that can just make sure that what's already there can be even better. I'm going to turn it back over to Shelley.
Thank you, Brian and Corey. So this evening, we hope that you've been able to deepen your understanding about both the laws and regulations that impact this curricular area, what we teach, and how we're planning to implement our curriculum. But we really wanted to also include how we are addressing the recommendations that we received from the ad hoc committee earlier in the spring, including their focus on increasing communication to families about what the content of the curriculum is and how parents can opt out. That's been a hot topic, I think, with Referendum 90. That's one of the most pressing pieces of sexual health, both prior to this law and probably post, is what are we teaching? How can parents support it? And if parents choose to opt out of this, how do we do that in a way that's convenient for them as well? As Brian shared, we've taken advantage of our new website upgrade, and we've actually added an intuitive link under the academics office to K-12 sexual education. Typically, this was kind of a buried piece and some health and fitness, but we thought this would be a good service to our community and our families to make it really clear where, go to the academics office, right there, math, science, sexual education. And we want parents to be able to utilize that. It is new, and we are updating it frequently. But we wanted to focus on how our team is really working also to provide consistency in our instruction. We want all of our students to have a similar learning experience, regardless of their school or their teacher. And that's why we have a coordinated and aligned curriculum. And what we heard from our ad hoc committee is, yes, we have curriculum that meets the standards, but we need to have consistent implementation, good communication, and develop that partnership in a content area where we need parent partnership to help us to implement this work. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share this evening, and our team is prepared if you have some questions or comments about our presentation. Brian, would you go ahead and take down the share screen?
Definitely.
I'd like to thank the three of you for a very comprehensive overview of the changes, for taking the time to go through and do a really thorough audit also of what we have and where we need to go. Very helpful to see that, and hope that it informs our community tonight as well. Directors and student representatives, are there questions for the team? Student representative, let's see, Pilch Bisson.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not, if this was covered anywhere in the presentation and I happen to miss it, correct me if I'm wrong, but in my experience with sex ed in the Everett Public Schools system, I've mainly been taught abstinence first curriculums. Is that included in the curriculum you guys were talking about?
So I'm going to,
oh, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to turn it over to the experienced health teacher, Corey, to address that.
Yeah, so thank you for your question. We actually teach abstinence first, but we also have to teach contraceptives. We actually, by law, there's a law passed a few years ago because it used to be just abstinence only curriculum, but now we teach both sides.
So is it required by law that you teach abstinence first, or? was that law completely repealed, or was it changed to requiring abstinence first instead of abstinence only?
It's required to teach both sides,
Okay.
abstinence and responsible contraceptive usage.
Okay. I was just wondering because in my experience with health curriculum, it's mostly been taught as the only 100% effective method is abstinence, which factually may be true, but I worry about that being the direction of the curriculum going in. So that's just a concern I wanted to bring up. And then another one was I also took the 9th grade health curriculum. I took that online this past summer just to free up some room in my course schedule to take one extra course my freshman year. And I was wondering about if there's any updates to that, because in my experience, the online health curriculum, especially in the comprehensive sex ed section of that, I felt like it was a little bit short, if not lacking some kinds of information. So that's just a concern. That could also go to people dealing with summer school, but that's just a concern I want to bring up about making sure this fits in with the online curriculum as well.
And Tara, that's an excellent question. And it's one of the reasons why Corey, Brian, and our team are working really hard to coordinate and align some of those pieces. As you heard from the ad hoc committee, some schools were not as consistent with adhering to the curriculum that's coordinated and aligned that we provide. And so that's some of the work that we're doing in response to that, is making sure that we're providing coordinated aligned. So the experience in a summer school health class should be similar to the experience that a 9th grader would have at any of our high schools. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really great questions. Thank you. Director Mitchell.
Yeah, and I just want to say how thankful I am that we have students on the board, because 2 districts I spoke to today do not have students on the board, and actually one of them had board members resistant to the student voice. I'm like, that's who we serve. We need to hear from them. So thank you for your bravery in talking about that. Yeah, I just personally, my mom signed up for everything that I learned, everything in school, so she didn't have to teach me anything at home. But in talking to a friend who is of a different mindset, and she asked me about this, I did say, well, there is that opt out. She said, yes, but then my children would be ostracized. So while we are making it easy for the parents, how are we also protecting those students so that they don't look different from their classmates?
And that's thank you, Director Mitchell. That is a good question that we have as a former middle school principal. I heard that a lot. Like, I don't want my kids singled out. What do I do? And one of the things that we do is we encourage schools to provide alternative spaces. There is a requirement for alternative lessons as well. And so it used to be in the old days where you would have a student who would be exempt from that, and they would hang out in the office or hang out in some other space and just miss that instruction. And so because we think it's important for parents to be partners in this work, is they have the opportunity to opt out, and then we will actually have alternative lessons for those students to participate in. And I think that part of our work in training is working with building leaders and teachers in finding ways to do that in a way that preserves dignity and supports family choice. So that's part of the work that we're continuing to do in our implementation plan.
Okay, and then second question, thank you for that. If they are requiring a second class in high school, I cannot imagine that's a full semester, or is it just a couple sessions of refresh?
So the law does not specify how long it has to be. The law just specifies that the topics need to be covered. So we're in discussion on what that would look like. And the way that I look at it is that there needs to be a second opportunity to engage with that topic.
Okay, so like maybe in that second quarter of PE or something, or
that could be. We can find some alternative ways of being able to do that to re-engage students. The other piece is that because the referendum was just passed, OSPI is actually going to be providing for additional recommendations to address some of those very things. Like, we want students to engage in that twice in high school. What does that look like without adding another health class? Maybe it's in PE. Maybe it's making sure that we have units that are comprehensive, covering those concepts twice in that health class, that semester health class. So we expect OSBI to give us some good direction on where we should go for that. Thank you.
Any
I
other
was just gonna-
questions, or go ahead, Director Berg?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as a parent, just thank you for the presentation. It's lots of really good language and lots of good just really good updates. And so I will echo what our student director mentioned. It seemed like my girls just were taught like abstinence only, like it was very inconsistent, right? Like in terms of what they were taught at their different schools. And then also I had one in summer school, that summer school health class. And it's same thing. It was like, I don't know if it was even in there at all. I don't remember it really being in there, but it just went by so quickly. So there just didn't seem like consistency from what my other kiddos had when they went through a traditional health course. So that's awesome that you guys have already figured that out and made arrangements for it. So just thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you.
And I will also remind directors that when we last discussed this topic in a board meeting, we had, I think, recognized that there might be some inconsistencies throughout the district of how the curriculum was delivered, and schools had different processes for informing parents. And really that was in combination with the new law, sort of the whole emphasis behind this presentation tonight is how can we bring all of that together in a really meaningful way for our students.
I just want to say thank you very much for this, because I recall that one study session or board meeting that we had this discussion, and my hope is that we can make it coordinated, aligned, consistent, and implemented throughout the entire district in the same meaningful way at each school. And that second time it's offered in high school, you know, I'm sure OSBI will have examples as to how we can do that. And I'm sure, based on what I've seen today, that if not, our district will, Mr. Day and his people will find a way in which it is implemented in another section at another time and within high school. So thank you very much for the presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Student Representative Pilch-Bisson, did you want to add one more thing?
Yeah, sorry, this slipped my mind when I was asking questions the first time. The other thing I wanted to ask about was, is there any inclusion of LGBTQ sex education involved in this curriculum?
Yes, there are. And I actually served as a high school teacher on the 2016 Get Real middle school and high school adoption team and went through that process. And as a former health teacher, public school health educator, my heart is near and dear to making sure that everybody's voice and identity is represented as much as possible in our curriculum. And so that was one thing that we really were looking for with that adoption. So the answer is yes.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Thank you. I actually had one question. I'm not sure. This might be a Mr. Fleckenstein question, but do we need to update policy 2123 to capture more of the details or more of the specificity of Senate Bill 5395? It seems like our policy is sort of vague, and I don't know if we need to make it more inclusive of some of the specifics that were mentioned. So I actually don't need an answer on that one right now. That's just something I'd like to put out there and maybe could get back to us at some point. Director Nichols, did you want to add anything?
I was just going to ask the same thing because I just assumed that that OSPI or WASDA will be putting out some sort of sample, whatever. But I think more specificity in our policy would probably be needed.
So I just want to chime in. We actually did just update the policy. WASDA gave us a model policy. It is inclusive enough to cover this new Senate bill. The procedure is where the most specificity is with respect to the individual parts of the bill. So if you look at the procedure, you'll see that that covers all of the new pieces.
Thank you for that clarification. I was just thinking of that as we were talking about policy and going, I bet there's a procedure that has more detail. Okay, any further discussion on this topic? Hearing none, I'd like to thank our presenters again for an outstanding overview of the program. And we will go ahead and move on to section 11 of our agenda, which is information and discussion. And tonight we do not have any information discussion, nor do we have any unfinished business, and nor do we have any new business. So we'll go on to section 15, which is our upcoming agenda items. And Dr. Salzman, may you please provide an overview?
Yes, and thank you. Before I start this, I just want to say to the board and the public and to our presenters, to everybody else, this was a perfect example of how in May, we heard the presentation, we had to tweak a few things and quite receptive to our community and to everybody. So great job to everybody and getting more clarity on this is truly appreciated. On a November 17th special meeting, the board will discuss the superintendent's evaluation. A special meeting November 19th, 2020, special meeting, the board will participate in the WASDA Annual Conference Awards, where they'll be honored for their outstanding work. And then on November 24th, our regular board meeting will discuss the following: Next Generation Science Standards Update, fourth quarter financial report, fiscal outlook 2020-23, fall 2020 reopening as we continue giving updates during this time, legislative priorities, our CT program evaluation, Perkins grant, August financial reports, NWSOIL Fairfax contract, and finally our dear Aqua Sox agreement. And that would be our meeting on November 24th. Thank you.
Thank you for the overview. So with that, that takes us to executive and closed session. And tonight we do not have an executive or closed session, which then takes us to section 17.0, which is adjournment. I'd like to thank everyone for being here this evening and participating. This now concludes the November 10th regular board meeting of Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. I hope everyone has a good evening.
Thank you. Be safe and be well.
Thank you.
Happy Veterans Day.
You as well. All veterans.